I share this because I think it's so important that people understand that it's really not too late to pursue dreams. It's not too late to find love. It's not too late to have a family. It's not too late to travel. It's not too late to be creative and write that novel. And that's a message that I hope my life and my example inspires in other people is to not worry about the timing of things and just like go for it when at whatever age it hits.
The Doing the Work podcast is brought to you by some amazing sponsors who we're very grateful for that allow us to do this amazing podcast that brings you information that helps you to be more connected and be more healthy and helps you grow in your life. Strive Strength and Conditioning empowers people to be happier, healthier, and more successful in life. They help you to crush it in the gym so you can crush it even better outside of the gym. They've got top-notch coaching and an even better community. If you're looking to up your game in your fitness or your healthy habits, this is the place to go. Check them out at www.strivebastrop.com. All right, Heather.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I am so pumped to have you on this show. You have been, someone who's been in my life for 5, 6, 7 years, 5, 6 years, maybe
almost 7 years.
Yeah. And you have always been someone who has brought light and inspiration and positivity to my life. We've had, many conversations. For everyone listening, Heather was a member at my gym, Fortitude in Austin, Texas. And through that, I've gotten to witness your growth and evolution and just so much awesome stuff. And the way that you're touching other people's lives and the way that, and all through all the mediums that you're touching people's lives. So when I started this podcast, you were right at the top of the list of people that I wrote down on my list to ask to be on the show. And I'm just so glad to have you.
Well, that means a lot to me. I know it's crazy to think how our paths intertwined and crossed. And I often tell the story of how my business started, and you are always part of it because one of the events that really catapulted me on this nutrition journey, which is now what my business is about, is like sitting in your office, bursting into tears when I got my body fat results.
I remember.
And yeah, it was like a very memorable moment, right? But that moment set me on this new course of helping women. So you're definitely a part of my story. So it's really cool to be here.
I love that. I love that so much. I remember that like it was yesterday. You'd been working your ass off. You had been training so hard and you were doing all the things that, or most of the things that, everybody tells you to do. And I just remember the frustration. And what I love about that moment, honestly, is you got to have those. If there's no pain, there's no change. And that was the moment of pain that you had to experience and then look what it's brought you. I mean, look what has been birthed through all of that.
Totally. And I love that too. You have to hit your rock bottom in life in order to be willing to make hard changes, things that are uncomfortable. And I was just watching this little video from Mel Robbins on Instagram, and she was talking about how you always have to be ready and willing to be uncomfortable. And then you got to be ready and willing to do that day in and day out. And one of the things that CrossFit taught me and being a member at your gym was how to be in physical discomfort. And then that strengthened my mental muscle at being in discomfort. And all of that translated into me being able to start a business and then grow it and maintain it, because it's also very uncomfortable mentally to run a business, different than the physical discomfort of a workout. But that was the training ground that gave me the mental fortitude to pursue my business.
Yeah. And it's so, you hear it all the time, this idea of, getting uncomfortable or discomfort and all that stuff. But it's given lip service in a lot of ways. People don't really realize how uncomfortable they can get and how, sometimes being disciplined is uncomfortable, and it's not as pleasurable as other things you can do. But then all the growth that comes through getting uncomfortable, which is why I run the gyms the way that the way that I do, is I think that how you train, like in the gym, is the same way that, and you accomplish, let's say, a weight training goal or a body fat goal, is very similar to how you would do anything else. It's kind of just like repetitions, effort, good attitude, all that stuff.
Yeah. And having the right strategy too. It's like you could go into the gym and think you're working out hard, but maybe you're not actually doing programming the right way that's going to change your body, which is like
Absolutely
something you know how to do, right? And it was like that for me with nutrition. Like your workouts were amazing. There was nothing wrong with like the workouts that I was doing at Fortitude, right? It was like my nutrition, because I was working out. Like, I think I bumped my membership to the 5-day a week membership or unlimited or whatever. So I was coming like 4 or 5 days a week. I was coming like 2 hours because I do like open gym and like work on a strength move or something, or I was trying to get my pull-ups and then I would do class. So felt like I was working out a ton. And then that summer I gained 10 pounds of fat back.
Yep.
And after having lost it the first year in CrossFit, but I lost muscle the first year of CrossFit too, because I wasn't eating properly. So it was like, I kind of like felt both sides of the coin. And then I realized, oh, it's like this strategy around nutrition. Like you got to put in the work, but like you got to make sure you're working on the right things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I call them measures of performance and then measures of effectiveness. So measures of performance is like doing things correctly, but then measures of effectiveness is doing the correct things. And those are two different strategies. That's two different approaches.
Totally. Because you could be doing like intuitive eating. You could be doing it correctly, yep, but it might not be the right strategy to get you this particular result that you want. I love that distinction.
Yeah. And after all these years of being a strength coach and a trainer and owning gyms, like I think the one thing that's been revealed to me is that the answer is always, it depends. There's very few right and wrong and black and white when you're coming to the human body. It's like you have to kind of know that there's some gray area, and you just kind of have to find the strategies that work for you, because what works for me doesn't always work for you.
Yeah, there's so many different approaches. One of the things that has really shifted for me as a nutrition coach I've been a coach now for almost 5 years. And so when I started my business, I had knowledge, but it wasn't at the level that it is now, because at that point I'd worked with no clients. I just worked with my own body. And then I worked with one client and 2 clients, and I built this. Well, now I've worked with hundreds of clients. So I've learned a lot about how women's bodies specifically, because that's who I specialize with now, how women's bodies respond, but then not just like the biology of how their body responds, but like how do they do with their lifestyle? And I think that's one of the things that's really important to me, is like teaching women sustainable approaches to nutrition. And that's why I preach no forbidden foods and learning how to incorporate everything, because I go online and I see some posts from other leading thought leaders in nutrition stuff, and they can be so like anti-sugar, like, and I used to kind of be that way, because like I wasn't as knowledgeable in things. And now I've learned that things being practical and sustainable is also just as important for most women, at least, as like getting a physical result.
Yeah, well, consistency is what overcomes all obstacles. And so if you can't find ways for people to be consistent, even however imperfectly, it's not, the results aren't going to come. Well, I realized I got so excited about jumping to talking to you. I want you to give you an opportunity. Like, how do you describe yourself and your business? You go ahead and tell us like what you do. You gave us a little bit there, but I want to make sure people who's listening kind of understand a little bit about you.
Sure. So I'm a registered nurse turned nutritionist. I'm still a licensed registered nurse. I don't practice currently, but I still identify that way because for 6 years, it was my profession. And I have so much knowledge still as a nurse that it's the way that I think about things a lot of the time still. But nutrition is my practice now. And so I identify as a nutritionist, nutrition coach.
Awesome. And I actually love the overlap between the medical and the nutrition, because I'm a strong believer that nutrition is medicine. Movement is medicine. And with you having the both backgrounds, being the nurse who understands the science, who understands the biology and the anatomy and all of that stuff, but also choosing to apply the health and through nutrition is a special combination, which I think which is really working, obviously, for you and your clients.
Yeah. And it is something that's very satisfying for me to potentially work with a client who may have a health condition and then do nutrition with them and actually see measurable changes. I actually worked with a client who was a member at the gym a few years ago. This is when I was still working with male clients, and he was diabetic type 2. And we measured his blood values before and then after like 3 months of working with me. And everything improved, like his hemoglobin A1C, his cholesterol, his fasting glucose. And so it was really cool to see the implementation of those nutritional practices actually translate into improved metrics with his blood. So yeah, it's really helpful for me to have nursing knowledge. Working with women, hormones come into play. And so I know a lot about the menstrual cycle, and now I help women understand that, and we see fluctuations with that, and we learn how to train better with that. So it's a cool combination. I think another thing that's valuable about it is there's so many people that are entering the health coaching space online, and you can be a nutritionist online without any licensure, right? You don't need a specific credential in most states. The problem is I see a lot of kind of people promoting things that aren't necessarily backed by research. And one of the things, because of my nursing background and because I took statistics and I took research classes and how to assess research, I always am searching PubMed for like journal articles. And then I'm reading them and like thinking critically about them and then incorporating what I'm learning into my practice. But I'm not quick to jump on bandwagons, like fasting, for example, because I did a ton of research about fasting and alternate day fasting and came up with my own conclusions. But I think that's another valuable part of my medical background is the ability to assess research.
I mean, that's huge, right? And that's because you're right. It's easy to see a quote unquote fitness professional, a health, someone who's helping people with nutrition and with fitness. And, it's not hard to get into that industry. It is hard to be effective in the industry, because pretty much there is any kind of effort towards the goal will get you some results. And that's not getting the early results isn't always that hard, but it's the long sustainable. And it's when you're getting into the micro results. Like once you've kind of gotten to a place of steadiness, are you able to help someone kind of refine, polish, and get to that next level? And that does take the science and the experience and the knowledge and education like you have. So it's a fun industry to be in. I love it.
Well, I was just going to say it is. And what's neat, I think what's really neat about being both a business provider and business owner in the health space, in addition to being a customer and consumer in the space, is there are so many great niches now. For example, I specialize in helping women lose 10 to 30 pounds using macro counting without hunger and without forbidden foods. And then I have a friend who is a vegan coach, and she helps people improve their chronic health conditions through a vegan diet. And so, that's just two examples. And so what I love about where the industry is at and its sophistication and evolution is now you can really search for and find a practitioner who can help you specifically with your area of struggle. And I think that's much more effective long-term than just hiring a general dietitian to help you.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think I fell into the trap of trying to be everything to everyone. As a business owner, it was kind of like it was an extension of my personality, a character flaw of mine, where I was trying to be a people pleaser, and really that's something that I had struggled with, and so that kind of course translated into being a business owner. And you're right. Once you try to become everything to everybody, you essentially become nothing to anybody. So I love that you learned that, okay, I want to try and specialize and set myself apart. What do I want to be known for, and who do I want to help the most, and then really going for that.
Yeah, I relate to that as well. Cause I think when I started my nutrition business, like my first client was a guy who was from the gym. And I kind of tried to help everybody. I was like, "Oh, you're morbidly obese? Come on in. Oh, you're 60, come on in. You're a guy, come on in. You're diabetic, like you have Hashimoto's, like great, everyone come in." And what I've started to learn is that actually it's I also struggle with people pleasing. And what I had to learn was like, ooh, this is not effective as a business model. And it's not great for my clients. I'm curious for you on your end with your business, like how did that manifest for you in trying to please people in the gym?
Well, it really, it kind of affected who we were drawing in. I think that without having some sort of, it really came from, like, I'd say our marketing or whatnot, that if I was trying to use the latest trends that all the other influencers were using and all the language and all that stuff, rather than just getting really clear on who we are and putting that first and foremost, and then letting people who identify, like now we put our purpose statement front and center. Our core values are like right up front. And so if people see those and they identify with them, then they come in. And then there's going to be some people who are like, oh no, that's I don't believe those. I don't share those same values. That's probably not my place, which is awesome. I want my
Yes.
deepest desire that all people find their place.
Totally.
It doesn't have to be my place.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of like, and then of course there would be conflicts, and there'd be personality issues, and then there would be and when there is conflict, we weren't dealing with them well because of the differences in personality and things like that. And so, but most of all, now that I think of it, I think it just made me feel really good about. I felt more confident in the business. I felt more confident in running the business when I felt like it was a better representation of me and who we were.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important as business owners, especially because we're not like running like Coke or Nike. You know what I mean? Like our brands are my brand at least is very tied into my own personality and values as a
Yeah.
coach, and as a small business owner. And so I really relate to that, like that my values get imbued in my philosophy, and that might repel certain people, and totally okay with that, because what I've noticed is now I'm drawing like much more attractively the right people to me.
Exactly. It's that whole idea of the law of attraction. I think you're going to receive what you put out into the world, and so this podcast are part of, like, well, really my purpose. What I've kind of lended to the podcast and every a lot of the things that I do are so optimal health, deep human connection, and self-actualization. So I'm wondering, which of those three things are resonating with you right now? Optimal health,
Ooh.
deep human connection, and self-actualization. I'd love to kind of dive into one of those if you're feeling one of those.
Sure. I would have to say deep human connection,
Okay.
because I am in a new relationship.
Awesome.
And
Congrats.
thank you. It's amazing. I really truly feel like I've met my person, which is kind of scary to say, but he feels the same way. And so it's a very like exciting time. And it's growing me so much, like, because I haven't been in a relationship for a long time, like 8 years. And I've dated people, throughout that time, but I haven't actually been in a relationship, and I haven't actually like been in love the way that I am now. So yeah, we could talk about that. I'm like, it's definitely like something I'm passionate about. And
Yeah, well, right off the bat, I mean, one of the reasons why I love relationships is because I find them to be my mirror. You mentioned that it's a growing time for you. You're growing so much through this relationship, and I'm curious. Well, what did you mean by that? Explain that a little bit.
Wow, totally. It is a mirror. And I think because I've been single for so long, and I live alone, it's almost like I haven't had to confront some of my issues or my flaws. But being in a relationship, he's mirroring things to me, that because now we're spending so much time together, he starts to get to know me better than anybody else. Right. So, for example, one day we were driving and I was like, oh, was that your turn? And he's like, no, it's up here. And I go, I'm sorry. I hope that didn't come across like backseat driving. And he paused and he has a very gentle demeanor. He is never angry. Like he's not defensive. He's very like just a kind, tender soul. And he's like, I've noticed something about you. You tend to apologize for things that you don't actually need to apologize for. And I paused. And because I've done a lot of inner work myself, I was like, okay, what is that about, Heather? Because he's right. He's he wasn't the first person that I've apologized to for no reason. And what I discovered is that in my childhood, my parents were not always fully expressive of their true emotions. So if they were angry, they could be passive aggressive and repress it. So I was left guessing if people were angry or not with me because there was a lack of directness. And so I saw that and I saw how that childhood pain was coming into my current relationship and my current way of being. And and so how we resolved that in our relationship was like he was like, if you ever upset me, I will just be straight with you. You never have to wonder or guess if I'm angry or upset with you. I won't withhold. I will tell you. And so that's allowed me to now be able to feel much more comfortable sharing what I'm seeing or thinking without worrying, am I pissing him off? And secretly he's just not telling me, right?
Right, right.
So that's just been one of the ways I've seen like myself recently.
Yeah, and I think that happens in a lot of our relationships. Like, as you mentioned, many of our characteristics, our strengths, our challenges, our obstacles are often born in our childhood through maybe one or more experiences that we've had. In fact, I think I remember a conversation. So I learned a lot of this through the Landmark Forum and then the advanced course or whatever. And I think I remember you being involved with them way back in the day.
Yes. I used to work at Landmark actually for like 2.5 years. Yeah.
Right. So one of the things I got from that was this thing that I'm talking about now. It's like I developed some of my strengths and I developed some of my masks that I wear and all of that stuff through things that happen to us, that all of us, not just me. I mean, everybody has this that through their childhood. So I love that. So now through your relationship, you get the opportunity, if you're with the right person, right, and if they're open to, you get to kind of bounce these, because he's going to have them too. I mean, what you had wasn't his thing, but he's going to have his thing. And what a cool opportunity through that relationship to hold up that mirror for somebody knowingly and being aware of like, oh, I can see this is a thing that I can hold this mirror up for you and have enough care to really help each other through that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like I'm learning things about him, right? And so the other day I was like, I've noticed that sometimes you're kind of forgetful. And he was like, yeah, he's like, my grandma always said if my butt wasn't attached to me, I'd forget it, and we had a laugh about it. But what I'm learning is like, we all have flaws, we all have struggles, we all have things that aren't perfect. And how I'm approaching it and how we're both approaching it is like, cool. Like, how can we support each other with that? So with him, I was like, would it support you? Like he forgot his computer. He was coming over to my place to work. He forgot his computer. So then it cut our time short. So I said, in the future, would it be helpful to you if I just sent you a little reminder, like bring your computer? He was like, yes, that would be so helpful. Whereas like, I'm afraid that I might come across as like a nag. So then maybe I wouldn't say that. But by asking him, how can I support you with this? We become like a team together, helping each other like with our weaknesses and ultimately hopefully becoming something stronger together.
Right. It's like it's having an agreement for like how you guys are going to communicate and like, making sure that you're both on the same page. And then like, if there's something that's not working, also have the agreement that, you'll say something if it's not working for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But the other side that I wanted to share, because this just happened last night while I was sleeping, is I had a nightmare. And I've been having all of a sudden since basically he and I have like, taken our relationship to the next level emotionally, I've been having like nightmares. And I do like dream analysis on some of my nightmares. And I did it on one of the ones I had today. And it was really powerful because what I saw was like my inner psyche, my subconscious is feeling like that fear around letting someone into my space, like my private emotional space.
Yeah, because the first thing that I noticed about when you were describing this new relationship is you says it's really scary to say that I found my person. And in my head, I was like, oh, what's scary about that? So this is how it's manifesting for you.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, I think my internal like nervous system is like alert, alert, alert. Like there's some kind of vigilance or fear response that's being triggered. So I'm working through that like consciously and noticing it. I actually have a name for my like inner anxious child. My middle name is Anne. So I named her Anxious Annie.
Oh,
So
interesting.
like, so I can kind of like separate myself from that identity. Like, I am not my anxiety in the situation. Like, oh, that's anxious Annie. She's trying to keep us safe. Let me reassure her. And then, like, thank you, but we've got this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very, I feel like I'm going through a deep transformation. Like, CrossFit transformed me, Landmark transformed me, running a business has transformed me. And now I feel like I'm in this new phase of my life that's really beautiful where I'm experiencing like a whole nother type of transformation. So
Right. And to have those transformations, you have to go through trial and trouble, and you're not going to change. It's kind of what I talked about earlier. There's going to be a pain point, and you're not going to
yes.
change unless there's some sort of pain point. And so the idea that when you have a dream, that you will be tried and you will be troubled many times in the pursuit of accomplishing that dream, because that's what prepares you for actually being ready for it.
Yeah, I super relate to that. So I'm currently 40, but I'll be 41
Woo!
in like
Welcome
a
to the club.
week. Woohoo! I love it. But so in the Bible, the number 40 is always associated with trial and tribulation. And I just learned that this past year. And like my spiritual faith is really important to me. And one of the things that I like felt in my 40th year was trial and tribulation. Like it was a hard year coming out of COVID. My business took a hit. I was dealing with some mental health stuff, like really bad anxiety. I even moved home with my parents for a short period of time. But like I've come out the other side of it. But like that trial and tribulation has prepared me now for like the blessings and the gifts that I'm receiving. Um, and like the trial and tribulation of like having been single for a really long time, I have so much gratitude for this person. Like I never want to take him for granted because I have experienced like I call it the wilderness, right?
Yeah.
Like being alone in the wilderness and like now there's somebody there with me in the meadow. I'm like, I just want to stay in the meadow. But like it's a very exciting experience to be like forged and strengthened by my struggle.
Yeah. And that's just the beauty of just having relationships and having people, but also with what you do for a living, with these changes and the trials and tribulations that you're going through, it's also, I'm sure, empowering to know that you have like systems and habits and ways of being that help you to get through those trials probably a little better than maybe what other people. And I'm sure you coach your clients to do something similar, that they're going through everyone's going through something. And
For sure.
And having your foundation, your habits, the things that keep you safe and healthy and sound and prepared for whatever may come. I'm sure you're a little more ready for all that.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. I feel that my routine, and my foundations ground me no matter what is happening now. So I have a very strong morning routine. It's like a 5-hour routine. This is like the benefit of owning my own business at this point in my life. I feel like I worked really hard for 23 years and now I'm at a place where like all the work I put in, I'm able to just enjoy life a little bit more, which is amazing. But like some of the things that I do that I want to maybe share with the audience One, I do the High Performance Planner by Brendan Burchard every morning. I've been doing this planner for almost 2 years, and I started using it because a friend sent it to me during COVID when I was like going through some depression and like a struggle with my business. And this planner has like changed my life. This planner keeps me grounded, focused, not just in my work life, but in my personal life. Like it helped me manifest this new relationship. So that planner every single day, even the weekends, I do that. I always move my body basically every single day, non-negotiable. So like I love doing a little bit of yoga in the morning. Then I hit the gym, do weights, and then I always walk for basically an hour every day by the lake, get my morning sunshine. I listen to an inspiring book on tape. I don't usually listen to podcasts actually when I walk, but I do listen to a ton of books. I'll listen to music. I'll do prayer while I walk. And then I come home and like eat a good breakfast and start my day. But that routine has helped me navigate anxiety, depression, uncertainty. One of the things I've learned about myself is that mornings tend to be the hardest time for me, and I only go up from there. So when I was in my trials and tribulation, when I was having bad anxiety and waking up with bad anxiety, when I was feeling depressed, I would just try to remind myself, Heather, the mornings are always the hardest time for you. And anytime I wake up and I don't feel my best or I'm struggling mentally, I'll just be like, Heather, it's just the morning time. The day is only going to improve from here. You'll only feel better from here. So that's some of the things that I've done to really help me navigate like challenging times. Do you have like a morning routine yourself or something that like you ground yourself in?
Yes, I'm a same way. Like so speaking of self-actualization, I think one of the things that has really being a small business owner, getting to kind of control my schedule. Although lately I would say I've been spinning out a little bit personally because I don't get to control my schedule as much as I used to because I've been called to active duty in the National Guard and I don't control my time like I used to.
Wow.
And
okay.
yeah, and so it spins me out, but I am a huge advocate of a morning practice. I'm constantly talking to people in my life about it and trying to get them to find something, not necessarily my practice, but something that works for them. Yeah. And so I actually stole mine and like modified it from Hal Elrod's The Miracle Morning, where he has 6 kind of daily practices that he recommends. And I've kind of just like squished it and switched it around. But no matter what, every single morning I have to meditate. I do some sort of meditation. I have to do some sort of journaling. I've kind of developed a practice of journaling that really works well for me. Although I would be interested in hearing about the one that you use.
I think you would love it.
Okay. Yeah. I need to hear about it. In fact, we also, I put together like notes and we post them so we'll link it in underneath this.
Okay.
So if you remind me afterwards, I have to do some sort of learning. So every single morning. So that's so as long as I hit those 3 benchmarks, there's 2 or 3 other things that I prefer to do when I have the time. But if I do nothing else, I meditate, I learn something and I journal.
I love that. How do you like to learn? Is it like listening to a podcast or a book or reading a book or video or?
It's generally either reading a book or listening to a book, audio. I have a hard time, the way that I process information, actual reading a hard copy of something is a lot slower for me because like I read sentences over and over. And because of the way my brain works, I really have to I can't move on in it until I feel like I've grasped what that part was saying. And so it makes it kind of slow for me. But listening to an audiobook is nice because it doesn't wait. It just keeps going, And so, so I do think that I get through things quicker that way.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I'm the same. I enjoy reading books and certain books, and I've discovered that reading novels is great for me to just relax with. I'd gotten I struggle with workaholism, and when I started my business, I worked to my detriment. I worked too much, kind of all the time for almost 2 years, basically almost burned myself out so much that I moved to Hawaii and then kind of just was like, I don't want to do anything. But what I've learned, so my point in sharing that was I got away from reading for pleasure because all I would read were business books or personal growth or right? And I realized that for me to have a business and sustain it year after year and not burn out, I actually need to have a balanced life. What a concept. And so, like with fun and joy and play. So, for example, I took sand volleyball for like 6 months over the summer and fall and loved that. I'm taking a stand up comedy class starting in like a couple weeks here in Austin. But one of my new practices when I get into bed every night, I just have a novel, not a business book, not a personal growth book, just a mystery novel, something I can kind of escape into. And I just read that until I get sleepy. And it's been a really enjoyable way for me to relax. And then I use the mornings kind of like you as my learning time. Like I'll listen to an audiobook where I can just like learn about something I'm interested in.
Yeah, I love that. And learning can happen in so many different ways. You can learn through a novel. I mean, some of the greatest
That's
works
true.
of fiction have taught us many things, historically. And so, I guess we're always learning. So there's a lot of ways to do that. And so, as long as I've checked that box, I think. So again, one of my worst fears of the things that I fear in life, one of the I guess many, but one is stagnation or regression. And I think for me to fight that off, like I think if I'm feeling stagnant physically, if I'm feeling stagnant mentally, if I'm feeling stagnant in business, I start to get a little, I get fearful. I become anxious, and so it kind of helps me to ward that off, through a daily practice.
Yeah, I think we're always evolving as humans. Like, I don't know. I guess for me, I feel like it's almost impossible to go backwards in a sense because, like, every day I've learned something new. And, like, I don't know
Yeah.
if you feel this in your 40s, but like, I feel very wise now. Like, not like arrogantly wise, but I'm just like, oh, I have some wisdom now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel great. I tell people all the time, like, and you're right. So just to be clear, like I'm very aware that it's just a story that I tell myself about stagnation.
Okay.
It's a story I tell myself about regression. It's just like one thing, something I'm probably always going to struggle with. But when when I'm aware and I'm actually like doing the work, I realize like you can't, what is it? You don't touch the same river twice or something like that. It's always flowing. It's always moving.
Right.
Yeah, so it's, but I do also agree with you. I tell people all the time, like my 40s, I feel great. I'm 44. I'll be 45 in August. I feel like I'm just getting better. I haven't even, I know and that's the thing. There's so much more to learn. There's so many other areas to grow in,
Yeah.
So for all the people listening who are in their 20s and 30s, it gets better and better.
Well, and I love that we're talking about this because one of the themes of my life has been I always feel like I've started kind of later at things. Even as a teenager, I felt behind. Like I didn't kiss the first guy that I ever kissed until I was 19. And I always like felt like I was behind in life. And I didn't start my business till I was 36. And I'm almost 41 and I feel like I've just fallen in love for the first time for real. It's like it's this feeling and theme that's run through my life. And so I was reflecting on that the other day and thinking about that. And I was like, maybe I'm going to live to 110. So God's just like, you know what? We're just going to like space these things out a little bit more for
You've
you.
got time.
You've got plenty of time. Ken, you want to be married 70 years to this person? Like, let's just take it slow. But I share this because I think it's so important that people understand that it's really not too late to pursue dreams. It's not too late to find love. It's not too late to have a family. It's not too late to travel. It's not too late to be creative and write that novel. And that's a message that I hope my life and my example inspires in other people is to not worry about the timing of things and just like go for it when at whatever age it hits.
Yeah, and to take that a step further, some of your best work is going to happen later in life. Like you said, you will have learned so many things by that point. You have had so many experiences. You will have had several failures probably that will have educated you as well. And so making that extra effort, later on in life actually will probably be more effective. You'll probably be more successful, rather than just saying like, that you're just gonna, well, it's too late, so don't even bother. Like, no, this is your best work coming. Get out there, get into the fight, you know?
That's really good. Yeah, I feel that like in my relationship, like I used to have this story that like I didn't have relationship experience, so like I wouldn't be good at a relationship. And now I'm in a relationship, I'm like, oh, I'm really good at this actually. Like I'm really good at communication and being supportive and owning my own feelings and not reacting. But that's different than when I was 24, 25, right? I've grown a lot. So even if I wasn't like actively in a relationship, well, and I was in other human relationships. So it's not like I wasn't in any type of relationship, but it's just interesting to notice I had that story and then to realize that, no, you're right. All of the life experiences I've had have actually made me much more effective to be in a relationship now.
Yeah, it's so fun to think about, again, because what I think a lot about is self-actualization. How do people become their most fully expressed, fully, finding their full purpose and being able to put themselves fully into that purpose, and that just takes time, and it takes you got to figure some stuff out. And so, yeah, I don't envy being young. Would never want to be young again. I don't think, because
No.
yeah, I mean, those were kind of like very difficult years for good reason. I had to learn. We all had to learn those things. But
Yeah. It's interesting. I have some friends who are like 27, 28, and they have their own businesses too, but they feel so far behind or they're not as successful. And I want to be like when I was 30, I was like 100 grand in student loan debt from nursing school, like had just graduated nursing school, didn't have a job, like was living in a house with like an old lady, like, and I was 30, like you're way ahead of where I was. So it's so easy for us to play that comparison game instead of just like settling into our personal journey and embracing the path that we are walking.
yeah, that comparison piece is, we all get caught into that, and and it's like the stories that we taught, again, like you even saying that they're ahead of where you were is like, maybe just because they started a business, maybe that part they've gotten a head start, but who knows you never know what's going on inside of a person, so,
Totally.
yeah.
It's easy to compare externals. You're right. And it's easy to kind of, yeah, this is so going back to the relationship thing. This is another thing where my relationship has been mirroring to me some cool things where sometimes I mind read or like I make assumptions and they're not like malicious. I'm not like trying to be malicious, but I'll like connect things that maybe aren't connected. And he's been like gently pointing that out to me at times, and which has been really helpful for me. So even you saying that, I'm like, oh, maybe that's one of those things where sometimes I see, like I interpret something in a way that's ultimately maybe not fully accurate.
Yeah. Have you read the Four Agreements?
I have. It's been a while, but what are they again?
It's simple. Yeah. That one of them is don't make assumptions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I clearly should reread that book.
Well, I mean, but that's a tough one, because our brain is so analytical and we're designed.
Yeah.
I mean, in order to keep ourselves safe, we're trying to predict particular scenarios, and we're trying to interpret body language and things in our environment. It's almost impossible not to make assumptions or try to predict things. And so, it's a real skill. It's a real
Right.
art to catch yourself at the analytical, like fact gathering phase and not jump right into the assumption phase, so, and I'm so guilty of, making assumptions. And, it's funny about assumptions. Like you make an assumption based on some maybe small fact that you have, and then you like act as if it's true, and then so you treat the other person as if it's true, and then there's just this whole ends up going down a slope that based on things that aren't even real.
Totally. Yeah. It's so important to question our assumptions and clarify things with people. And yeah, Yeah, I think deep human connection is such an opportunity for growth. And you can't really practice things like love and patience and kindness and humility by yourself, right?
No.
Like you have to have another human to practice those things. It's easy to be patient when you're by yourself or,
Yeah. Well, another thing that Landmark taught me actually was that our life happens through language and our relationships. I think I got that in the advanced course, but I remember them talking about like our entire life literally happens inside of our relationships and through language.
Yeah.
And I believe that to be true because, imagine living in a world where there were no other people and there were no words to
Right.
express.
Yeah, it'd be a very
Yeah.
strange, isolating experience.
Well, it just wouldn't be life. I don't know what you would call it, but it would be, yeah. So, that's why I chose deep human connection is to just as a tool through growth. And really all three of those things, optimal health, deep human connection, and self-actualization are really just all about growth.
Well, and they're connected. I'm reading this great new book. It's called 8 Dates. My boyfriend actually found it and wants us to do it. And so I downloaded it as well. And it's by a marriage researcher named John Gottman. And so, but I was reading the introduction to it, and it's basically like 8 dates that you can go on with your partner or somebody that you're dating, and you're trying to decide if you guys are aligned for the future. And it looks like a really great book. But one of the things he's talking about is the science that shows that people in a healthy relationship or marriage have lower rates of depression and anxiety and addiction and suicide. And I really relate to that. I think some of my anxiety and depression that I've been dealing with over the years has just been the fact that I've been on my own. And I didn't want to just jump into a relationship to have a relationship. I dated people, I went out, I just hadn't met somebody that I clicked with. And so now I'm feeling like an improvement in my health in just like the past few months of us dating. And so I think those are so connected. Our relationships, I'm a nutritionist. So I talk about, okay, eat the broccoli and, eat your salmon and all that stuff. But like, if you don't have like a deep human relationship, you're probably not going to be at optimal health, even if you hit the gym and you drink your water and you eat the best food.
What you just said reminded me also is like, to what end? It reminds me of like, well, what is your nutrition, your health, your relationships, even your own personal growth are in service of something, and
Yes.
So if we don't have a why, if we don't have a purpose, if we don't feel like there's a reason for us being here, it might be hard to, why, then it's like, well, why even bother eat well? Why even bother focusing on my relationships if they're not, if it's not for me to contribute in some way,
Yeah, I completely agree. Like when I work with my nutrition clients, one of the first exercises that I do with them is them clarifying their why. And then every week I'm like, what's your why? Let's verbalize your why, get it up in front of you again. Because when you're making hard changes, and it's hard to change your eating habits if you're very used to drinking soda every day and eating chips and you just get used to it, you have to have a powerful why calling you forth. And actually, when I hit a low point, basically not a low point this summer, but I just was like, I hit that place in my dating life where I was like, I'm ready for a change. Like, I got to do something different here. What I've been doing is not working. And like, if I don't change something, I'm going to stay alone. And I found a book that my therapist actually recommended to me that she said helped her find her husband. And it's called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping. And it's kind of a cheesy title, but the guy who writes it, he's a psychologist named Henry Cloud. He's amazing. And he's no BS. And it's like very clear. He's like, well, how many men are you meeting a week? How many new men? And like actually having a conversation with them. And he makes you track your number every week for like a month. And then you have to identify why the number was that week. So I was doing these exercise and it was like 0, 2, 0, 1. And I was like, okay. So then once you do that, your assignment is you have to meet 5 new men a week, and they have to be new to you. So you've never met them. You have to have talked to them long enough where if they wanted to ask you out, they could. And they have to have a way to reach you. Like they need to know your name, find your LinkedIn or your Twitter or something. And I was like, this assignment is going to stretch me, like how CrossFit stretched me. Like, your workouts, like
talk about uncomfortable,
right? But I was like, it brought me back to my CrossFit days. Like, well, if I want to change with my body, I had to get uncomfortable and do something I had never done before and be willing to tolerate uncomfortable feelings. Can I do that with dating? So I threw myself into it and I went to meetups. I started going to all different kinds of events. I just threw myself into it and I joined sand volleyball and I was just going after it. And 1 week I hit 6 and then 1 week I hit 8. And then I started getting asked out. It was kind of interesting. I could correlate the number because I tracked it. I could correlate the number of men I met with getting asked out or not. And then I actually met my boyfriend, though, at an event that I was invited to because I went to an event because of the assignment. I just went to this meetup because I was like, I got to meet 5 men this week. I'm at 2. Okay, here we go. I got to do something. And then I met a woman at that event and she invited me to this entrepreneurial event. And that's where I met my boyfriend. And, the assignment was just so eye-opening to me because I was like, oh, it's a numbers game. Your soulmate isn't just going to knock on your door unless he's UPS delivery guy. And right?
yeah.
And my packages don't even come to my door. They get delivered to a package room. So I'm definitely not meeting him, even if he is the UPS delivery guy. And it was just an amazing experience of I was uncomfortable doing this assignment. But I've learned that discomfort is where growth happens. And where growth happens is where results come from.
Yeah. And I mean, what a great book. I mean, we'll tag that again. We'll link that also but I mean, that's really what it's about. It's about getting out there. It's about getting consistent. It's about being clear about what you want. It's about making deliberate effort towards that thing that you want. And you're not going to do it, like you said, people who sit around and think that if I'm a good person and if I'm, and if I really want this thing, it's just going to come and fall in my lap. And it's bullshit. It's just just bullshit. You got to, like you mentioned earlier, I know that you had to go through this to get to where you are now, but you worked yourself damn near to death to get this business that you wanted to get to where you needed to be. And there is no replacement for hard work, and if you want that relationship, you got to go out there and you got to go get it.
You got to do your dating reps.
That's right.
Right. I was like, this is how I track my workouts. Did I work out 4 times this week? Or did I, have this many sales conversations in my business? I like to track metrics. I was like, okay, I'm going to use those same skills and apply it to my dating life. Did I meet 5 new men a week? Because we can't always control the outcome, but we can always control our actions.
That's it. 100%. In fact, you can see this sign on this side, this sign right here behind me that says effort and attitude. They're the only 2 things that you can control. I can always control my effort and I can always control my attitude. And then, everything else that there's going to be lots of other variables, but yeah. So, well, that sounds like a great book. Would you say it was 8 dates?
It's called, so there's a couple books that I'm reading. I recommend the one that helped me get out of my own way to meet my boyfriend was How to Get a Date Worth Keeping. And then a new book I'm reading that's about relationships is called 8 Dates. So you're
2 different books. Yeah.
That's 2 different books. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we'll link those 2. And okay. So whenever I invite people on the show, I've learned that they always think I'm going to ask them, they always have something in their mind that they probably were prepared to talk about or that they thought I was going to ask them about. So what is it that you thought I might have asked you or that you wanted me to ask you when you came on the show?
Wow. Well, I think I maybe thought you would ask me like, how did you start your business or how did you grow your business? Because a lot of people ask me that question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am actually glad you said that because I want you to share that with our audience. And one of my favorite memories of you was we went to Cherrywood Cafe. You were just conceptualizing this idea about branching. I remember you were frustrated with nursing, and you got into nutrition because you were solving problems for yourself. And then you were thinking, I think I want to do this for a living. And so we went and got coffee at Cherrywood one time, and you kind of laid out your idea for it. And so I was like, I got to witness that very early kind of conceptual phase. And it didn't, by the way, for anyone who's listening and who is thinking about starting a business, the beautiful part of that whole story was that her original plan is not actually how this all played out. Like it has evolved. And so the biggest thing is have a goal, have something you're working on, and just fucking get started. And then the path will reveal itself to you as you kind of move along. So tell everybody, yes, I want to hear how you started your business.
Okay. So yeah, I was struggling with my own body. Then you and I had a conversation. I remember you being like, maybe you should try a nutrition, or maybe you should do something with your nutrition. And then I started doing Eat to Perform, which was a macro-based program. And so I started tracking macros, and in 3 months, my body transformed, like lost 9 pounds of fat, gained a pound of muscle. And then I got super strong on all my lifts in the gym, like PR back squat, clean and jerk. I could do handstand push-ups, weighted pull-ups, all those things. So then I decided to take their nutrition certification course just because I was interested. I was just following my interest and my passion. I always had loved food. And the summer before, I had actually done a small meal prep business, and people at the gym actually were paying me for meals. But that wasn't, the profit margins are super low on food service. And the like volume I'd have to do would have been so huge. So I kind of nixed that idea. But my passion for food was still there. And so I had already been posting on my Instagram like about workouts and food for almost 2 years. And so I was actually at a baby shower with Isabel, one of your former, or I don't know, or current, I don't know where she's at these days.
No, she's at another gym. Yeah.
Okay.
But we stay in touch.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So another Old Fortitude member. And she and I were at this baby shower. I remember this very distinctly because that's when I kind of first had the idea for the business. And she was telling me how much she paid her nutrition coach per hour. She's like, yeah, we talk every week for like half an hour. And I was like, wow, I could do that and make double what I'm making as a nurse per hour. And the light bulb went off for me. And I was like, I could do that. And so I basically put together kind of in my head what I would do for clients. I didn't need any startup, anything. I used my personal phone, and I used my free Google email and my free Google spreadsheets. And I did have a website that was on Squarespace that I had paid for the year before because I was kind of doing a food blog, but I needed the website actually to process payments. So that was like really my only overhead. And my first client was actually a client from the gym. I pitched him in San Antonio over margaritas after watching, I think it was like a regional competition for CrossFit or something. There was some competition in San Antonio, and he signed up with me. I remember I was sitting in my bedroom on the floor, and I got the alert that the sale had come through on my website, and I like screamed. I was like, my first $270. And I was like, I was just like, oh my God, I did it. And then I coached him, and he ended up losing like 45 pounds in 6 months. But right away I got my second client. So then a girl from the gym joined my program to help her shed some stubborn fat for her wedding. And my business literally grew exponentially the first 3 months. I had 2 clients in June, 4 in July, and by August I had 16. And that's when I actually went part-time at the hospital because I had replaced at least like 1 shift a week with my new income. So I was like, well, I'll just stay part-time. I still have benefits. And the great thing about working as a nurse is I had 5 days off every week to work on the business, right? Because part-time was 2 12-hour shifts. But then one of the things that really turned the boat for me was I went to a personal development weekend with Lewis Howes, his Summit of Greatness. And I met my future sales and marketing business coach there. And I signed up with him. I was really scared to sign up with him because it was a $5,000 investment. And I signed up with him though, and I made back the entire investment in the first week because he taught me how to do a higher ticket type of sale. I was basically undervaluing my services and I didn't understand it. And I didn't understand that the market could actually bear a much higher investment for my services. And so I was underpricing. And just like you could buy a Kia, you could buy a Tesla, you could buy a Lamborghini, I was like, I don't want to be the Kia of nutrition coaches. Like, I'm going to go after the market who can spend, a couple grand or more on this. I don't want the people who want to spend $140 on a nutrition program. So I changed my whole business model. And in 3 months, I made like $30,000, saved every penny of it, was living off my nursing income. And then I quit nursing December 31st of 2017. So I've been full-time in my business for 4 years. And since then, it's literally just been working with clients, iterating, working on marketing techniques, working on sales. I get a lot of referrals. I get a lot of word of mouth, and then a lot of people through Instagram, through podcasts, things like that. So that's the genesis story of my business.
Yeah, so this is really important for everyone who's listening to this. There's a few key things that I picked up on while you were saying that. And the very first thing was, like, none of this would have happened if you just didn't have the personal courage to get started. So can you talk through a little bit about it? Because plenty of people have great ideas. In fact, there are genius ideas out there that we've never even heard of because the person didn't have the courage to get started. So what was that part of it like for you?
So for me, my fear is always running out of money and like not having money and like ending up homeless. I don't know. That's like where my brain goes. I'm never scared of what people will think of me. That never has crossed my mind ever. I also don't fear if I can do something or not. Like I believe myself very capable because my parents programmed me with that belief from a young age. Like I distinctly remember them saying, you can do anything you put your mind to, like over and over and over again. Like you could be a doctor, you could do anything. Like, so I truly believed that, right? Like what you program your kids with, they internalize it if you say it often enough. So I didn't struggle with fear around what will people think of me when I first started the business. And I didn't struggle with fear of like, will I have enough money? Because I started it with still having a full-time job. So one of the things that helps me when I'm starting a business or having an idea, I think that's valuable for people is like, just make sure you have a cushion underneath you. Like, don't quit your full-time job before you have tested and proved your market concept.
Right. And that's huge. I'm going to pause right there because that is absolutely critical that you have to have some sort of safety net. You have to have some sort of backup plan. And the people who, like I personally made sure that when I decided that I was going to go full time at the gym, I purposely actually took a job that I knew I didn't care about. Like I switched from one job that I loved very much and that I cared about very much and transitioned to a job that I did not care about very much. And I knew that I wouldn't mind kind of strolling in a little late, leaving a little early, taking a longer lunch, things like that, so that I could do the things that I knew. It was just purely a stepping stone, but it was for that reason. I needed some income. I couldn't just bail on my bills and all that other stuff. And so that's a really important thing for people to hear is that almost nobody just quit their job and then like haphazardly just said, I'm going to go start this other thing. There has to be some sort of overlap.
Yeah. And I also want to just say, it's not that I didn't have fear. I don't want to come across, because I definitely had fear, and I had fear at all different times in my business. Like raising my prices, I had fear. When I raised my prices, I lost 15 out of my 16 current clients. And I had to start over, but I was willing to take that leap of faith because I knew my program was valuable and I knew I could deliver at that higher investment level. So I would say if you have fear with starting your idea, the number one tool that I use to navigate fear is, what's the worst case scenario? And I will write it out. Okay, this is the worst case scenario. Nobody buys my product. I make $0. I have to go back to my nursing job. And when I do that exercise and I realize, like, the worst case scenario is I go back to a nursing job. I'm not going to go homeless. I'm not going to die. Um, I'm going to be okay. I worked as an ER nurse. You worked in the military. We saw people actually die, right? We know the worst case scenario. And starting a business, you're not going to die, okay? Um, and so that tool has really helped me. I use that tool to ask my boyfriend out. Like, I'm the one who asked him out. I was scared. I was like, "What's the worst case scenario?" He's like, "I have a girlfriend. I'm not interested," or he just doesn't respond. Okay, I'm not going to die. I can handle that.
Yeah, and it's actually really important. And a lot of times people like do jump right to those worst case scenarios, but none of us are the type of people who just let ourselves like become homeless all of a sudden. Right. Of course, you're going to be scrappy. Of course, you're going to figure something else out. But we do often in our minds jump right to those worst case scenarios. Okay, so with your business now, let's talk about how can people find you? How do you want to, how do you want to be known? How can people promote you? Share that with everybody.
Sure. So my favorite place to hang out is on Instagram because I am there every day, Monday through Friday. So that is at Heather McConochie. I also am on the web, heathermcconochie.com. I have blog articles there. You can sign up for my weekly newsletter. I have inspiring stories of my clients there. And how I work with clients is I have a coaching program that launches 3 times a year. And I specialize in helping women lose 10 to 30 pounds through macro counting. And I promise that you won't feel hungry and you don't have to get rid of your favorite foods. You'll learn how to eat them in moderation. And yeah, I also have a recipe product called the Recipe Fix, which is all of my recipes in one spot. So it's macro friendly, really delicious recipes. It's the recipes that I cook for myself. And I'm always adding to it. So we have over 140 recipes now in it. It's a searchable database you can access on your phone or on the internet. So yeah, that's what I do.
I have to make a big plug for your Instagram because I follow you on Instagram, and so educational, entertaining, well done content that people really do need to listen to. Even if you're not fully ready to take the leap for a nutrition coach yet, and you're just trying to help yourself out, Heather puts out some great content out there that will certainly help you to learn. So
thank you. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very proud of you for the quality of your content. It just always, it's actually, I would say, an area where I'm insecure about. It's not something that I gravitate towards or I'm naturally good about. It's just kind of like that, putting yourself out into the digital space, all those things. And you've just done so well with that.
Thank you. I love communication, and I love trying to inspire people, teach people, find ways to do that. And yeah, I've had people on my Instagram who have told me just following my content helped them lose 20 pounds or 40 pounds. So come on over. Even if you're not looking for a coach or you're not sure if it's, the right time for you, you can just get free value. I also have a podcast too, The Positive Thread. Every Sunday I release new episodes. So you can check that out on Spotify or iTunes.
When is the next enrollment period for your program?
So yeah, we are going to start in May, and I'll be opening applications in April of 2022. So you can hop on the wait list now, and then you'll be given priority access to applying and to interviewing for a spot. I always give people on the wait list first shot because I do have a limited number of spots. And you can learn more at my website or click the link in my Instagram bio.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Heather, I knew it was going to be a great conversation. I learned just in this hour we spent together, I learned things that helped push me forward. And I know that other people also will be encouraged and inspired to move forward. And so just so grateful for your time and just how you show up in the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Athan. So grateful for you.